Well, I'd like to say thank you for joining us for this R7 video. We just moved over, kind of trying to get serious about moving over to Twitch. I must say there's a reason I've done radio, because it appears that with video, you've got to have proper lighting, you've got to have good camera use. On the video that you're about to see, you will find neither. What you'll find is my mug on one small frame up in the corner and the three lovely ladies that I did the interview with. It's a great interview. You need to watch it. Thanks for joining me. I assure you I'm going to study this. I'm going to try to find out how I can improve the video quality. For right now, you're just probably better off to not really even watch the video. Put it on the radio, put it on your speaker, do it while you're working out, doing the dishes, driving down the road, whatever. I'm going to make this better. It's got to be, if we're going to move out of the radio atmosphere into the R7 video atmosphere. I'm just going to have to do what it takes. So bear with me on this one. They will get better. Edition of R7 video, I guess now. We've changed from the radio format. I'm here with some new friends. And if you guys would go ahead right before we get started, I just want you to tell, just one at a time, tell us your name, and then hopefully I'll remember in order your names, and so as I address you, it won't sound stupid, because usually when I do this, I forget people's names, and I'll go, so Kevin. Oh wait, you're not a Kevin, so hopefully we get this right. So give us your name.
Not a Kevin.
You're not a Kevin. Definitely not a Kevin. You don't self-identify as a Kevin?
No.
Okay, good. That's good. So what's your name?
I'm Brittany Kelly.
Brittany Kelly.
Heather Starbuck.
Heather Starbuck.
Carrie Warren.
And we are here today to discuss the life of
Matt Adams.
Matt Adams. Let me pray for us, and we'll get started. Okay? Father God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the ability to be able to transmit this. And Lord, more than anything, we hope this goes out and touches lives, saves lives, changes lives. Lord, we just commit this time to you, and I just, once again, I thank you for this family and their willingness to come forward, that others may be able to maybe not be part of the tragedy that they've had to live. Thank you for letting us help others. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we're here to talk today. What I want to do is I want to know pretty much. Well, first let's talk about how we met, because that's weird. I mean, I think that was kind of a God thing anyway. Because I was on Facebook, I was looking for a tractor, I think,
and
or a mower.
You found a desk.
And I found a desk, and I accidentally pushed the button, and you wrote back, said, yes, it's available. And I went, it's goofy. I don't need that. And then I said something else. And then you came back and said,
but it's still available.
Yeah, it's still available. and I don't even remember how the conversation got started, but from that, what a lot of people would say is a chance meeting. I'm not a real believer in chance, but this all came about, and you started telling me about the event with your son and the foundation. Is it a foundation that you guys have started? Okay, I'll tell you what. Why don't you tell these folks out here, just take a little bit as you feel led, and tell us kind of why I'm here today. What am I interviewing you about?
Matt's life. So we lost Matt to a heroin overdose, September 2017. It was tragic and it was unexpected. He had been sober for 2 years when he relapsed. And, we kind of just started this to bring the community together and start saving lives. And we got the Matt Adams Foundation, and we're helping people. So
right.
That's why we're here today.
Right. So can somebody tell me what led up to Matt's being involved in this kind of a situation? Was it something that he had ongoing that was
So Matt was very candid with me throughout our relationship, and I knew about his addiction. We were friends before we were dating, and I knew about it from the get-go. I know he struggled with addictive tendencies in high school. They weren't as deep and intense as they got when he was in his 20s, but it starts as many stories do. It started with alcohol and pills. I think he would attest that Xanax was his gateway drug out of anything. And so that kind of got out of control a little bit in high school, and Carrie was there during that period. But things didn't get as dark until he was about 19 years old, and this is what he told me and what his friends have attested who were around during that time. That's when he started with the opiates, and that's first it started with pills. He tells me that he got a prescription for OxyContin when he was 19 years old for a back injury. Obviously, he already had substance use issues. So you combine that, and it's just a recipe for addiction and severe addiction when it comes to opiates because they're so potent.
Now, do me a favor. I just want to pause here for a little bit. There's a lot of people out there, myself included, to be quite candid, that don't know what's the difference between, let's say, an opiate or a methamphetamine type drug, or what is the difference?
Well, an opiate is a downer. It's a repressant, so it essentially gives you a euphoric feeling of calm,
numbing.
Yeah, you're numbing. Whereas a methamphetamine is an upper, so you get a lot of energy, kind of feel wired.
Right.
Yeah, so they're kind of polar opposites, really, with their effect on the person. And a lot of people, do have what they call a drug of choice, and Matt's happened to be the downers, the opiates, because it numbed a lot of pain and a lot of stuff that he was dealing with throughout his whole life. And so it happened, you combine all this together, and then his prescription got pulled because, the doctor saw that it was drug-seeking behavior after a certain point, and he was already super addicted. And one of his, I don't call this person a friend, but an acquaintance at the time, he, Matt was going through withdrawals, and he said, he called him up, and this person was like, I got a solution for you. And that was the first time Matt actually shot up heroin. And he was, I think it was 19 or 20. This all happened pretty quickly, because that's how that spiral does. So from then, it was about 8 years of, him disappearing, him trying to get into recovery. He worked on a farm for a few years to try to get clean, then came back, relapsed again. That's when, Carrie came into he seemed super heavily trying to get him treatment, because he reached out and he's like, I need help. And I guess I can let you talk about that, your experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really something that I haven't dealt with this a lot, but from what I have dealt with it, there's always those I need helps. And sometimes people just seem to miss them.
Yeah.
Is that, have you found that to be true, that it's
easy to miss?
Yeah. They'll say I need help, and I guess maybe kind of the thought process is, well, yeah, they do, and then you try to do some stuff, but it's, we're going to have a lot of people that are going to be watching this that are in this position, and they're seeing the I need helps, and so what, how does that come about? What's the first thing that happens when somebody comes forward and starts going, hey, I need help? Is it believed right away? Start
looking for help.
Yeah. I know that's what you're supposed to do,
but
say so many of us
take it seriously.
That's your opening.
Yeah.
Right. And so what do? They come forward, they say, I need help. Of course, now in this instance, get in touch with your foundation, right? And
right. So
make some phone calls.
That's kind of why we've opened this gate, is we're another point of contact to start reaching out and being like, well, here's this organization, let us step you through this.
Yeah. Did Matt have access to that kind of help, or did anybody even know about it?
He didn't have that kind of thing, but Carrie, mom, she pulled together all her resources to get him into a rehab in Oklahoma, where he stayed for 3 months, 6 months.
And how did that go? What was
It went really well. And, the rehab facility where he went was a complete medical detox for a week, and then a 6-month residential rehab. They take them and they detox them. They get the toxins out of their body and basically get their blood flowing clean again. Then they start training them to live a cleaner, healthier lifestyle, instead of falling back on what they had known to do for their escape. They teach them different ways to cope with whatever triggers they have.
Yeah.
It was more holistic than medical.
Yeah.
They, taught them natural ways to deal with their previous problems and addictions and how to steer away from them.
Right. Yeah. It strikes me when you talked about the injury, because I went through a period of my life where, first of all, I was on Dexedrine all the time I was growing up for being hyperactive. So methamphetamines were kind of my thing. And so it was really difficult after they took me off of it. Back when I was a kid, you just reach 14. When you go through puberty, you're off. And so terrible withdrawals. And so I've really kind of gone through my whole life going, I've got something wrong with me. I'm not quite right. I can't stay organized. And so I found my way through Christ and a lot of good support groups. But there are so many people out there that are going through these processes where they know something's not right. I don't know how to fix it. The idea out there when you talk to people, and I'm getting to a point here. The idea when you talk to people out there about somebody that's addicted to opioids is that they're in an alley somewhere, they don't have a job. That you get this picture that's so not true.
It's not.
And so, kind of speak to that. It's. I mean, I'm here in your home. It's a very lovely home. I've seen pictures on the website. Matt looked like he was a really fun guy to be around. Can you speak to that a little bit about what? Because I know people think, well, people that get addicted to this have really, they're just in terrible, situations, and obviously that wasn't the situation here. He just had one of you had mentioned that, he just needed something to numb some of the pain, and what does that look like?
There were things that our parents got divorced when we were younger.
Yeah.
That was hard on both of us. Matt was 15, I was 10, 11 years old. Our youngest sister, she's a baby. She's 3-4 years old, and I mean that was really difficult. That was about the time, Matt kind of left sports, picked up some other things, recreational, different friends, that kind of thing. You could tell that really hit him.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of it was a big life change, and to be 14, 15 at that time, that's a hard life change to figure out.
Sure.
So, as he, I guess, started later on, that was just kind of one of those mental things. He never went and got help and, talked to anyone about it, so he never was able to get past it. I think that was a lot of the original base of, his struggles. When I was 19, I had moved out of the house, and my fiance and I got an apartment. And when you say like help,
Yeah.
Matt had just come back to Fayetteville, and he's 4 years older than me. He's about 23, 24 years old. He had just come back to Fayetteville after being gone for a stint, and I was like, you don't have anywhere to go. Come live with me. And, I'm 19 years old. I don't know what to do.
Right.
I'm just giving him a shelter.
Yeah.
And I got to a point, like, I didn't know, how to address him on certain things. So I was like, look, Matt, I was like, if you're going to live here and I'm going to notice these things, I'm going to go through your things and I'm going to find, what you're doing.
Yeah.
I was like, if I see anything, I can't keep you here.
Right.
Like, you cannot be using when you're under my roof.
Yeah.
Like, I can't allow that. And I was like, I don't care if, you hate me for it. I was like, but I'm going to do everything I can to keep you clean while you're here.
Right. Is that a step in the right direction? I mean, if somebody's in that situation, is that...
I don't think there's any right direction.
Right.
You can do tough love, which I don't suggest. You can do, be strict, take them out to the middle of nowhere, raise them up,
You can let them do whatever they want, and that doesn't
They're
work.
still going to find it.
Yeah.
It's all them and how much help they want and how far they're willing to go to get that help. All you can do is support them.
Right.
And
yeah, the support thing is huge. I think now that I've been in this as well, I've talked to a lot of people who are IV drug users or in recovery from IV drug use, and a common theme is I'm unlovable. And that is cataclysmic, that line of thought, because that will make you want to use, and then this cycle happens, and then you really feel unlovable. And
Right.
so, changing that narrative, supporting them with love and compassion is essential. I think there's this whole concept of enabling, and I think it's a fine line. I think it's a very fine line, because as soon as someone feels like they're not loved and supported emotionally, and feel like everyone thinks that they are worthless, that just reiterates these thought processes that are happening in their head. So, when we talk about it, supporting those that are struggling, we do it from a very deep place of love, and because the reality is a lot of people are using because of pain, and so I think that's a critical component for people to keep in mind. That's the best way you can support them, is making sure they feel loved and valuable. regardless of what they're dealing with or going through.
Right.
It's not a reflection of them as a person. It's a disease.
Well, it's really good. Yeah. And so, was there a combined effort between the three of you? I mean, were trying to help him in these situations?
I wasn't in the picture yet.
Oh, you hadn't come along yet. Okay.
So Matt had moved in with me, lived with me for a little bit, and then my husband and I, our fiance and I, bought our first home, and I had caught Matt. Not using, but I found like needle tips and stuff like that he had tried to hide that didn't think I would notice, kind of thing. Right. And I said, "Look, Matt, I'm moving to my house, and you can't come with me. Like I've let it slide this long, and I can't anymore.
Right.
I don't know what to do, but I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm 19, shouldn't be having to make that decision.
Sure, that's rough. Yeah.
And so I think at that point he moved out with his girlfriend at the time, and he had a really tough road after that.
Yeah.
And it was hard to watch.
Yeah. Now, if you can, speak to the fact that there's going to be people out there that are going to feel like...
I'm tearing up a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm not long behind you because it's a very sad situation. And I think you hit it right on the head when you said you can't just take out a piece of paper and go, if A, then B, if 1, then 2.
No, not at all.
You have to kind of take your prompting as they come, do what you can, but there's got to be people out there it probably had to have gone through your head. What if I this? What if I that?
All the time.
The what if I's.
All the time.
How do you get past that? I mean, what do you do to go, or do you?
A lot of that, as far as, between Heather and I talking a lot about all of this and getting out and talking to different people, I think what's helped us is there is no right way.
Yeah.
No matter what we would have done.
That's huge.
It was Matt.
Yeah.
It was, he's the only one that could have changed it.
Yeah.
Anything we could have done wouldn't have gotten him where he needed to be unless he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy because, his best friend, throughout his adulthood, he passed away 9 months before him, and I ended up living with his friend's widow. Mm-hmm. And she had been in the thick of it for 6 years with her spouse. Whereas, I had seen Matt using drugs right before he got clean right when we started dating. So I'd seen him using, and I'd been there for him and helped him through withdrawals, and I became like literally the drug Nazi of our neighborhood and anything. I was
Boulder,
kicking
Colorado.
out people like crazy, and I was a scary lady, which is fine. I'm proud of that label at this point because I scared off some people that shouldn't have been coming around. But I didn't do it for 6 years like she did, and I did it for 2. But one thing that was different is Matt hadn't relapsed, with me until the end, and so I showered with him love and affection. I never checked his phone. We didn't have that kind of relationship. I feel like he valued that I trusted him and thought of him in this way that he wanted to be thought of, and believed in him and respected him. And he hadn't been used to that in relationships, I think. So, it was sacred in one sense, but then on the other hand, after he passed, I'm like, why didn't I read his phone? Why didn't I go through all this stuff? And
catch his signs.
Yes, but then I look at this wife, this widow, and she said, "Oh, I did it all. I did it all," and we still lost him. Mm-hmm. So we would talk because she would say the same thing. She's like, "Why didn't I just give him a little more leeway? Why didn't I trust him? Why didn't I build him up more?" And I say, "Well, I did that, and we still lost both of them." And so this addiction, this disease, is bigger. It is big. We want to get in our own heads and say it's our fault, but it's not, because it's so big. And it's not just Matt's fault. It's the whole system's fault. Like, no 19-year-old should have ever been prescribed OxyContin. This is so big.
Yeah. And, now let's. I want to hit on that. How prevalent is it? I mean, how much of this is going on? You know what I mean?
A lot.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to this widow. She got him into a state-run treatment facility, and one of the 30-day programs called Decision Point, which has since been shut down. But he walked out of Decision Point, and she keeps this. It's a briefcase full of stacked of pills, sheets and sheets and sheets, and she keeps it to this day as a reminder. She sent me a picture of it today because she was just going through her head, how did this happen? And they would cover, a whole dining room table. They discharged him with that. And within 2 weeks, he had overdosed, and half of the pills were gone. Whether he was trading them, I don't know. What he was doing, whether he was just taking them like crazy, I don't know. But you had benzos in there, sleeping pills in there. You had all sorts of prescription medication in mass quantities that they gave to a recovering addict. And so it's like
just incredible.
The system is failing in a lot of ways. When you see that, you see the system failing. And so I think it's an uphill battle for those in addiction.
Yeah.
It really is, and you combine that with the stigma attached to it, and it's
they're shut out.
ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
As Carrie has said before.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So we touched on this a little bit. When they say I need help, just immediately get on it and call folks like you. And so you have information. If somebody calls you, then you can go here's some things you can do.
If we don't have the information, we're gonna get it.
Yeah, get you to somebody.
yeah, we're networked, in this kind of arena at this point, so that if we don't have the information, we'll call someone at this other organization who will have the information. And
Now, how long have you guys had your organization?
A little over a year.
a little over a year.
Okay. And so, how are things going with that? What's the?
So we started beginning of last year, beginning of 2018-ish.
In mania. Pure mania.
Heather was manic, and she called and she's like, "Guess what I did?"
I was up for days just crying.
Watch this trick.
And so we of course immediately just jumped on board with her,
Right.
and we were like, "Okay, let's get this thing going." And she took off and hiked the Appalachian Trail. It's just under 2,200 mile trail from Georgia to Maine. Just to spread awareness. We had the Matt's purple bandana. She gave out purple bandanas on the trail, and
Wow.
Talked to a whole bunch of different people, a whole bunch of different organizations along the trail and whatnot. And she, really, got in touch with herself and everyone. And
yeah, and I did it in honor of Matt. I remember sitting there, and I think we can all attest that some of the reactions to Matt's death were surprising, and I got really upset when people started not our close family, but there were people who didn't want to talk about it. People who didn't want to have a funeral, people who wanted to put this under the rug. And the reality is Matt was an amazing man. And you just saw kind of some people turn on him who loved him and respected him. And I was really angry about that. And I decided that, he deserved to have a legacy, just like any other premature young death. It's a tragedy. And so, I got manic one night. I was really a mess for a long time, but and I was like, I'm gonna walk across the country for him, and I'm gonna tell everyone his name. Everyone's gonna know his name,
Yeah.
And because he deserves that, because he was amazing. And we can get into it more, like how many lives he touched while he was alive, but
he's still touching lives.
Yeah. But I just felt like he deserved something big, and so that's why I ended up doing the trail. I was gonna walk across country, and then that trail popped in my head randomly. I hadn't even heard about it in probably a couple decades, but I do believe that there's something going on up there, and I follow these weird instincts because I think they're Matt and God combined, But so and then I looked up, I researched the Appalachian Trail, and it is the highest rate of opiate addiction and overdoses. Coast. You're 50% more likely to die from an overdose in Appalachia than the rest of the U.S.
Wow.
So what you're dealing with is these small trail towns are hit hard, and you see the destruction. And I'm talking to people, police officers, people who are running NA groups out of their basement. All these people who don't have resources to combat with what has torn apart their towns. And so everywhere you go, you see it, and you see people working in it to try to alleviate it. You talk to people who are in the addiction, So I got a good landscape of how deep this runs and where a lot of roadblocks are, and I learned a lot, and I think it connected with a lot of people, because you can't hear Matt's story and just say he was just another addict. You can't look at him and say that. He was this amazing, beautiful person, and he was an addict. That was a piece of him. And so I think it resonated with a lot of people. And that was the goal of it.
Well, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot more. A couple of things that you've said that I'm just putting together is that everybody's individual, and everybody deserves somebody to Now I'm going to lose it. So everybody deserves to have somebody walk across that trail for them. You know, every life. And this is just, I'm kind of an emotional guy, so I'm into this now. It's true that everybody deserves that in their life. And so when you start looking at people as nobody's just another addict, you know what I mean? But we have that, don't we? I mean, even those of us that have been close to people who are addicted, it's so in our culture that, well, you know, it's their fault.
People are dehumanized.
They are. They are, and they're put into numbers, and they're put into categories, and boy, we just got to get away from that. And I just appreciate so much what you guys are doing. This is great. Let me show up. I'm going to do a picture of this. We're going to go into this now. This is the little flyer thing. I'll have it up on the website, and I'll put it up there. And so I want to talk about a couple of other things. Let's talk about this one. I'm going to put this up, but I'll have this up here. Let's talk a little bit about, say it again for me, naloxone? Naloxone. Okay, so tell us about naloxone, and you can put that if you want to. Can you just kind of put that up to the camera? There you go. Perfect. Yep.
Okay. So we have partnered with the Central Arkansas Harm Reduction Project. Sorry.
Yeah.
New thing. And we are the first hotline in Northwest Arkansas to have anything like this, where you can confidential text us or call us, and we'll get you I can't talk. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can call or text us, and we'll get you a naloxone kit free of charge. We completely rely on donations for our foundation, and in our partnership is how we get this. And it's each kit comes with 2 doses, and we'll instruct you on how to do it, how to see if they're actually having an overdose, and keep them alive.
Right. So tell us how it works. So somebody's there, they got this in their purse, or in the car.
Right. So as a civilian, it's just like CPR. You're protected if you give them this.
Right.
It's not going to hurt them if they're not in an overdose.
Okay.
But you should probably make sure they're in an overdose.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So Ashley Polly Act protects them.
What is it?
Yes.
Ashley Polly Act.
Oh, okay.
Protects them.
The Good Samaritan Law.
Right.
It protects them, and if you're using with the individual who's overdosing, and you stay with them, you need to stay with them until paramedics arrive and can help them, and you won't be you're safe.
Gotcha.
You don't run.
Right.
Right. Call 911.
Let's hit that. Let's hit that real good.
Don't run.
Yeah, let's hit that real good. I just want to make sure that everybody understands. If you're using and you're with somebody that's using and they're overdosing and you stay there and you help them, you will not be charged.
You will not be in trouble.
You won't be in trouble. Okay, I just want to make sure because that's big.
Yeah.
I'll bet there's not. I'll bet a lot of people don't know that.
Joshua Ashley Polly Act is what
protects them. Okay. That's okay. Great.
Yeah.
So and so they just call you. You get in touch with them.
We are not an emergency line. We are not, as you're overdosing, call us.
Right, it's not going to do any
call
good.
Call 911.
Right, yeah.
We can't get this to you fast enough.
Right, but somebody in the family, you got a mom or somebody out there that knows that somebody they love is struggling with this.
Yeah.
Have it in the medical kit.
Right.
Yeah, have it in your home.
We heard a story of a lady at a stoplight in Little Rock who was sitting next to another car. The lady in the other car was overdosing. In the car at the stoplight. She had naloxone on her and was able to save her life.
That's incredible. That's just incredible.
It's so important. And what it does is it as soon as it's injected into any major muscle. It takes the opioids off the brain receptors and completely gets rid of the overdose.
For long enough for help.
For long enough for paramedics
they might
to get
need
there.
A second.
Okay, so let's.
Second unit of it. So it
each
really
kit
depends
has
on
2.
how strong the overdose.
Yeah, that's what we need to hit on because what I don't want, I wouldn't want somebody to think, oh, okay, well, I did that, so now we don't have to go to the doctor.
No,
we don't
call
have to,
911.
Yeah.
Then give them this.
They still need emergency help.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have the instructions on it, but it does depend on the level of overdose, how much is in their system, right? If they had fentanyl, it's going to be strong. So, if you hit them once, you do CPR, and they don't come back after 2 minutes, you put this in again. And you can kind of keep doing that, actually, if you have multiple kits until help arrives.
Right.
This should do it based on, most suburban places, the time it would take an ambulance to get there. But, yeah, the key is to keep doing CPR, and the reality is this will only, if it does reverse the overdose, and if they do come to and they seem fine, that only lasts 30 minutes. So they still need to go to the hospital.
Get them to the hospital.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty important that people know that, because, especially if you're using with that person, you would need to know, hey, I think he's okay. No, get him to the...
They need medical help.
Right, gotcha.
Immediately.
Right. Okay, so tell us about this. Tell us about the event you've got coming up. I'm gonna be there. Looking forward to being a part of this. So yeah, just go ahead. Fill us in. Whoever.
So we are putting on our first benefit concert. We are going to be at George's Majestic Lounge on May 19th. They've been awesome in helping us, orchestrate this and get it together. We still got a little ways to go, but we've only got like 2 weeks to finish it up. So we're getting there. We've got a silent auction going on. We've had a whole bunch of local merchants donate to us. It's been awesome, the outreach and the support they've had, and it's really heartwarming to know that we have this kind of community here in Fayetteville.
Right.
We will have 3 bands that are going to be playing with us, and they are completely into it. They are 100% supporting us, and it's awesome too. We've got Caleb Ryan Martin, and we've got Jesse Dean and Company, and we've got Opalagafia and the Sweet Nothings. And we think it's going to be a really fun, awesome evening of just love.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Sounds really good. So where's it at? The address. I know it's at the... Do we have an address?
It's on Dixon Street in Fayetteville.
Dixon Street in Fayetteville, right. Tickets are $12, day of $15, right? And so is 6 o'clock, right?
6 o'clock doors.
Doors are 6.
PM
Show starts at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, very
You can
cool.
get your tickets in advance through georgeslive.com.
Okay, and so let's. What if somebody can't show up but they want to donate? How would they?
We have our website,
give us that.
mattadamsfoundation.org. There's a donate button. You can buy merchandise on there. There's all kinds of ways you can donate to us.
How else can people get involved?
We're always looking for people who want to help with the naloxone distribution program. That just continues to grow. Within 6 weeks, we gave out 250 plus kits just in this area. We're outfitting small police departments.
I'm going to tell you something. I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
This is important that we get this information out of here. It's odd because I've run with some people who probably ought to have this in their purse or
Matt
their car.
didn't have it in the house.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. He didn't really have it at the top of his mind either. You know, and the ambulance, we don't have any record of them using it on him. And so the reality is, I think a lot of these overdoses don't have to be fatal.
Right.
And we're trying to eliminate the fatal from overdoses as much as we can, because everybody deserves second, third, fourth, however many chances it takes.
That's
a life,
right. Yeah.
There's no number on a life. And as someone who is in recovery, as you mentioned, that it's worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Whatever it took.
Yeah.
So that's our philosophy.
Have you run into? Have folks said stuff like that? Like, they had their chance.
Yes. All the time.
Really?
Yeah.
I had a friend call me. Well, I've had a couple friends call me. One's a police officer in Idaho, and he called me and he goes, "How can you do this?" I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, I give Narcan out all the time. There's overdoses all the time. And I'm giving Narcan out, and these people, they come back and they just hate me, and they're yelling at me, and they're angry." And he goes, "And it hurts me because I'm trying to save their life, and they just hate it." And I'm like, "You just gotta love them."
Yeah.
And I was like, you can't, let that stop you from saving their life, because eventually they're gonna want to live.
Yeah.
And that's not every case. A lot of times the story you'll hear is, I was revived with Narcan and I turned my life around.
Yeah.
It was the wake-up call I needed. But the reality is, when you do administer the Narcan or the naloxone, they're going through immediate withdrawals. So it's not always a pleasant experience, especially if they really wanted to get high and stay high.
Yeah.
But again, it's a case-by-case basis, and every life matters. It doesn't matter where they are on the spectrum of their addiction.
They have to stay alive to find recovery.
Yeah.
And they're all
And sometimes we have to be tough enough to say, well, I'm sorry that made you mad. I mean, like you were saying with your police officer friend. I mean, you know, you'll get over it, and you know, it's. I remember this has been 30 years ago. I had somebody in my life that was. You can't do this anymore, but back then you could. I had somebody, a gal that I knew in my life that was being physically abused by somebody that she was with, and I went and told him if he did it again, I was going to really mess him up bad. And she came and told me she hated me and all kinds of stuff. But you know, 7-8 years later, she was like, "Thank you so much." You know, so sometimes you just got to step up and go. You know, hey, I'm not putting up with you know that kind of treatment. And like I say, case by case. Sometimes you have to be the person that goes, whatever. I'm just going to be there for you. You know, and it takes everybody, doesn't it? I mean, like I say, it's not you can't pull out your list.
This is the single most prolific and deadly epidemic of modern U.S. history.
Yeah.
It's going to take everybody coming together to fix this. The rates are not going down at all.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to politicize this, but how much of it do you think is coming across the border? I mean, is this really a bad problem?
Oh, there's tons coming across the border. There's tons coming from our doctors. It's coming from every
angle. That's where I was going to kind of go with that. Is that
every angle.
Boy, they just now I've got a good friend that has her medical marijuana card, and one of her big arguments is, well, why would they prescribe something you can make in the doctor's office, but this isn't okay? And I sort of said, I don't think any of it's okay. I don't think any of it's a good idea. But it's just huge, isn't it? I mean, the doctors just do it. I work at a school where everybody's in sports. 95% of the people that are in the school that I work at are in sports. And that's one thing that they're just shoving that stuff at them. You got a bad knee, hey, keep playing and just take this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
I've been
incredible.
there.
Yeah.
I played soccer in high school, and I blew out my knee. I wasn't even in a game. I was just messing around with some friends, and I blew out my knee.
Yeah.
And, I had 5 bottles of pills.
Yeah.
After my ACL replacement.
Yeah, I had an ACL too. Yeah.
And I've never had the want ever to just,
and that was during Matt's addiction.
Take them. But
You were seeing that, yeah. Yeah, see, I was just the opposite. I just liked it. I used to hate it when people would say, well, doing drugs isn't fun. I'm like, obviously you've never done any drugs. That's not the problem. The problem is it's a trap, and it's a death trap, and one thing leads to another and another and another. So that's another thing that I'm a real big proponent of. Let's just be truthful and honest about it.
Yeah.
There's a reason that folks do these things. And so, walking around and trying to say that's what I'm saying. People just get rude about things, and I don't understand it. As a pastor, one of the things that we're taught to do in situations where somebody's passed away, and everybody wants to give little answers, and you know what? Sometimes there's just not an answer. Sometimes some people just need you to sit with them, and it kind of sounds like some of the stuff that everybody here has done at one time or another. Sometimes they just need to know they're loved and they're cared for, and I find it very interesting that it seems like there were totally different avenues that Matt was approached, and that you've all come up with the same answer, that a person's not going to change unless they want to change. There's no one route that says.
I think it's not just about wanting it too at a certain point, because Matt wanted it. He wanted it more than anything, and I saw him when he was in recovery and how hard it was for him, and he'd tell me that every single day. He's like, you don't know how hard I'm trying.
Yeah.
And so he wanted it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing, this idea that it's a choice really bothers me, because he went out at the top of his life. We were getting married the next year. He had a great career. He had his little puppy he loved. We were buying a house. And he told me, he's like, I never thought I could have any of this.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd live till 30. And he was so happy. And to get him then, I think, speaks volumes to the level of the power that addiction is, and not just as this choice, but as a disease and as something that needs to have long-term treatment. He didn't have access to counseling with his insurance, so we did the whole common law married thing so that he could get on my insurance finally, so that he could get counseling. Unfortunately, that was right before he passed. And so the access to long-term support needs to be there, because it's not a choice. It's not a choice. And I think there are elements that are choices, for sure. You know, I think Matt would say, he said to me often, he said, if I could unwind time and never take Oxy, I wouldn't. If I could unwind time and never use heroin, I wouldn't. But given the knowledge I had at that time and where my body was through this addiction, that wasn't
a choice at the time.
Yeah, and so I think we need to change how we look at it as a culture.
That's really good.
So that it's not a victim, it's not blaming the victim of addiction, you know? Because it's been medically recognized as a disease for decades.
Yeah.
As cardiovascular disease, which could be caused by not eating right. You know, all these other diseases that, yes, have other influencers, we don't question, but we question this one and we blame the person who's struggling with a disease. And that prevents people from getting proper treatment and resources.
Yeah, that's really interesting. On a much smaller scale, you know, I've kind of faced that with my battle with my weight. You know, it's like, you know, well, you just need to, you know, not eat as much. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Right.
I'll get right on that. You know, it's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, with drugs, you know, to say to somebody it's a choice is really stupid. I mean, really, when you think about it, because nobody chooses. You know, they may choose to have fun that one time, but they don't choose to be an addict. They don't choose for it to take over their lives to that point. It's just like you were saying. If you could go back in time, sure, I would change my choice then. But those little incremental choices lead to bigger and bigger choices. That's why they talk about gateway drugs.
Yeah.
That's why they talk about things that lead to other things. And it's just so prevalent in our culture. Lots of people in my family have dealt with, you know, just on pills. It's all prescription. You know, it's not. They're not buying them on the streets. It's you know, well, some of them are buying it on the streets, but some of them aren't. You know.
Yeah.
So what do we do now? Okay, so now we've got the foundation. We've got this. We're going forward. They come to George's Majestic Lounge, and we're going to make donations. And then what's the next step? What is it? Just information? Is it?
Our ultimate goal is to raise enough funds to help the people get through recovery.
Okay.
To give grants out to help fund the process of recovery.
Right.
We haven't fine-tuned it, and obviously we're very grassroots right now.
Sure.
You know, we can afford to give these out.
Yeah.
But recovery is really expensive, and that's
Give us an idea. What cost are we looking at?
Rehab alone for Matt for the 6-month program that he went to was over $20,000.
My goodness. And did insurance cover any of that, or is that
Not a
something you just got
penny.
to come up with? Now, why?
Not a penny.
Why can't we
It's a good
get?
question.
It's a great
Very
question.
good question.
Yeah. Well, and those are the first things that pop into my mind. Why aren't these things more available?
I think there are some plans that will cover it, but you've got to, you know, pay for that premium for that plan, and it's not like something
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Well, just
people
like with the
plan to have.
counseling. Why
Yeah.
wasn't
And
the
a lot of things that are covered, right, are, you know, 30-day programs. That
Or
detoxes you,
outpatients.
and
Outpatient.
then you're detoxed, and you know you're back on you're back to square one, and you're actually more likely to overdose because you haven't had it in your system. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
I think it's a misunderstanding of the length of time that is needed for something like this. This is a long-term chronic disease, and it's behavioral. Yes, it's physiological. Sorry,
Yeah.
physiological.
You're doing better than I would have.
It's got all these components. It's usually trauma driven.
Now,
There are all these components to it.
We know that about alcohol, though. I mean, everybody will say, you know, you don't say, oh yeah, I used to be an alcoholic. I don't, you know, I don't say I used to be an alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in 27 years. So, you know, but I still tell people I'm a recovering alcoholic. I still have to watch that.
Right.
So we recognize that in alcohol. Why don't we? What do you think the problem is?
I
with
think it's recognized. It's just not. There's no because it's not at the forefront as far as like insurance policies and things like that. It hasn't gotten there. And again, this is an institutional problem.
Yeah.
That's essentially the crisis is faster than the solutions that are being provided, which is why we're doing Narcan, because right now it's damage control until, you know, we alone cannot get everyone who needs to go to long-term treatment. We can't help them do that. We can't physically do that. So we're trying to, you know, alleviate the damage until the systems, the insurance companies, the doctors all team up and stop prescribing the way they do, which they're working on. But, and you know, then there's treatment programs that are adequately funded and that sort of thing. So until all of those things happen, you know, it's complicated.
Narcan has been available also through many pharmacies for anybody to walk in and purchase. You have to get it through the pharmacy, and it's so cost prohibitive. People aren't doing
it's expensive.
It's going to be over $100 a pop.
Really?
Yeah. I think, insurance plans are starting to kind of get that this is an important thing and that they're going to be more popular with the public if they get on board because people are dying on this quantity. So some are, offering it cheaper, which is great, but not all of them. The nasal spray especially is very expensive. So yeah, it's all these factors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to definitely be there. I've got some friends and some family that are coming there. I had somebody call me the other day. I was telling them that I was going to go to this, and they said, "Isn't that a bar?" And I'm like,
Yep.
"Yeah," and I don't care. yes,
They serve juice too.
I'm a Baptist
There's
preacher,
juice
and they
and
have
water,
water.
and
That's
there's
right.
soda.
That's right. So, get off the high horse there and come out and support this situation. Okay, well, is there anything that we missed that you guys really just wanted to mention or talk about or cover that we haven't covered?
No, I mean,
I think what we're really trying to do, one thing I briefly touched on is Matt was the kind of person who, through his life, was always reaching out to people. And, after he passed, we had quite a few people come up to us. And, people I had known, when I was with Matt, but I didn't know the depth of their relationship, who said, I was using and he helped me get clean, or I was super suicidal and he reached out because I was drinking, I was buying a bunch of liquor and he didn't even know me, and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to go talk, let's put that back?" And he was always reaching out, and we always had people on our couch who might be homeless or whatever. He was just trying to help people wherever he could. And so I think we're just trying to extend that legacy, reach out to people. We're all in this together. We're all the same creatures of this planet, same creatures under God, and so I think that's our biggest message above everything, is that we have to protect each other and have each other's back, and no matter what they're going through or what society views it.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, okay, let's do the info one more time. So, contact info first. Somebody they want to be a part. They want to help. How do they get a hold of you? What's the website?
So it's mattadamsfoundation.org.
Okay.
We are also on Facebook.
Facebook, right?
And Instagram.
Okay. Do you want to give out those?
Best way to contact us? Matt Adams Foundation.
Oh, okay.
You'll find
just
it.
bring it all
Yeah.
there. So, okay.
Info at mattadamsfoundation.org is our email.
And then absolutely come out on
May 19th.
May 19th.
May 19th would be Matt's 32nd birthday.
Yeah.
Well, it's just too young, isn't it?
Very good birth. It's a very
too
good
young.
date.
Yeah, I got to tell you, at the risk of choking myself up again, I'm sitting here and I see our guy here come up here, and there's a bunch of them out there, and this is where they start, and we all grow up, and we all have problems and things, and so you just hit such a huge point that we have to have a heart for the individual. Everybody, we need to get out there and have each other's backs, and not play the blame game with the individual. Let's put the blame where it is. And it's institutional, and you've touched on that several times. We've got to get to these folks and help them to understand they're creating this epidemic. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. I think it's money driven, and it's disgusting. And so I just great job, y'all. I think this is a wonderful thing that you're doing, and I hope we get out there and reach a lot of people with this. Okay, well, I'm gonna any last thoughts, last things. Okay. Yeah.
If you want to get some Narcan, we suggest it.
Yeah.
If you work in a service industry, late night service industry, we're trying to equip bouncers, servers, bartenders, etc.
Uber drivers. Everybody.
Great idea.
Yeah, Uber drivers. So think about that.
Hi, Leonard. If you are struggling with addiction yourself, it's a confidential hotline, and we won't try to convince you to go into recovery. We will meet you where you're at.
We won't convince you to do anything.
No, that you're not ready to do.
If you're ready to talk, we're ready to listen.
But our hotline is there. If your family member is struggling, we will get you some naloxone. We'll get you multiples so that you can give your loved one it, and maybe even more so he can have his friends have it as well. So her friends. We just want you equipped. We want people prepared. We won't prevent fatalities and the loss that we had to experience. We don't want anyone to go through.
Yeah.
So
That's really good.
get our hotline number out.
Yeah.
Oh, should we give that number out?
Yeah, the confidential hotline is 479-222-0532, and you can call or text it. Easiest way we have found so far is texting, because it goes to 3 people and one of us will respond.
24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We may not be happy at 1 a.m. in the morning, but we'll respond.
Well, we're going to pretend we're happy, and we're going to love you. We're
Yeah.
going to love you. They're going to love you. I promise. I've seen it in their faces. Okay. Hey, thanks for having this interview with me. I know it's not the easiest thing, and you guys have been doing some of these, and so just keep up the good work.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for coming out and talking to us.
it's been my great pleasure.